Hi guys, it's Rachel May again. Nice to connect with you again. And again, there's a question from Christy, which I think is a good question and could be of general interest and importance. Some of you will know some of this stuff. It's to do with cutting the cords. Or once there was a book that was written about this subject called Cutting the Ties That Bind. We all get etheric cordings, and they really complicate things. We need to be clear of those etheric cordings. So as we go on, I'll explain a little bit more about etheric cordings and what to do about them. And I'm going to also give the most powerful exercise that I've ever come across. And, as I keep saying, I've been in the field a long time, and you just get very sensitive to energy. I started out very sensitive to energy, very easily affected by energies. And I have had to have a toolbox of tools with which to protect myself. So now I want to share the basics with you, and if you've already know some of these things or are doing them, good for you. When I get to the exercise, which is even stronger than cutting the cords, it's quite a bit stronger than anything else I've ever come across. It involves something you do visually involving you and the other person, or it could even be a situation. Usually it's another human being. And it sounds a bit more complicated than it is. It's actually very simple. But the easiest way to jog your memory on it is to get a pen and paper so that when I describe the exercise, you can do a little diagram. It's as quick and easy to do as it could possibly be. And when you look at that diagram, you'll remember the whole process. And it's a short process too. It's not a very long process at all. So back to cordings. Okay. So whenever you think about somebody with more than a glancing thought, with some concentration or more than once, a few times or a lot, there are etheric cords, and they look like hose pipes to me. They look like white hose pipes, as I always see them, that start to form between you and the other person. And they go from you to the person because it's a focus of energy. You know, when we think of people, we're sending them energy. When we think of anything, we send energy to it. When they think of you, they're sending energy to you. And we are much better off if we don't have these things. Relationships go much better. No relationship can flourish if people are corded to each other. So you get a lot of problems where people don't, for example, clear their issues with a partner or a friend or family, because cordings start to build up, all kinds of things start to build up where you have some of their energy in your field and they have some of your energy in their field, and so you're not fully functioning as yourself, because we function out of the sum total of all the energies that we carry. And we want those energies to be our personal energies. As soon as we're not, we're functioning out of, we're carrying energies that don't come from ourselves, we're actually in trouble energetically, and we need to keep it clear. So if you're having any difficulty with anybody at all, it's a really good idea to do some cord cutting. And I would say that, for many people, to just briefly do the cord cutting every day is going to keep you much more balanced. When you have somebody else's energy in your field, you're not balanced. And when you come from being not balanced, or you could say centered, you're not really achieving what you want to achieve. You're not in control. You're not fully in control. And it is actually the answer to why a lot of, the question of why do a lot of unfortunate things happen in relationships. It could also be a fantasy, if you're obsessed with something. You will get cordings to the image. You create an image by your focus, and then you are corded into that image. And again, you want to clear that, because if you want to create something or you want to avoid something happening, you need to be free and clear energetically. And I can see where it's interesting, the visuals I'm getting as I'm saying all this, because if you, for example, are obsessively afraid of something, a situation, you get so corded to your fantasy of that situation, you're pulling it towards you. If a person gets obsessed with another person, an almighty crush, so many cordings to the image of that person. It's not the person, really. It's the image, the fantasy image. But when they meet their idol, they can't speak. Everything's cut off. So Archangel Michael is the being who is in charge of freeing up our energies so that we can be fully empowered and free. And so the usual way to do cutting the cords is to call on the help of Archangel Michael. And Archangel Michael, please come with your beautiful blue sword of light, or your beautiful sword of blue light, and cut all my cordings. Cut all the cords is an affirmation that is generally used. The wording itself isn't too important. And Archangel Michael himself says that it's good to meditate on your breathing, or whatever you do to ground and center first, because you want your energies to be just that little bit elevated so that he can find you, if you like. When you're too pulled down in the density, he says, I have trouble getting to the cordings and cutting them for you. But that's a very simple way to keep energetically clean for the most part. If you're in a very difficult situation with another person, maybe a person who is very difficult, for example, it can be more tricky, it can be more complicated in those kind of situations. And one that comes to mind is an acrimonious divorce. It's certainly not the only one, but it's a well-known situation of tangled energies and a psychic attack from one or the other, or both. But very often there's an imbalance to where one is attacking the other much more, or being the one that attacks and the other is not the attacker. That you have there a manipulator who's playing with that person who's trying to get away from them, trying to end the contract, and needs to end the contract. And, very often the other party doesn't take it well, because they need to be in a situation where they can work on somebody. And if they've been working on that person for a few years, and that person is getting free, is going, they can be extremely angry. So what you find with such a person is, if you energetically scan, and some people visualize more easily, some people see onto the etheric plane more easily than others. Some people can't do it at all, or, it may be temporary, because if you want to do something, you can actually do it. But some people have a block in seeing etherically, and then you're going to have to be intuitive about it, or ask somebody else in a reading or something like that. Or some people dowse with a pendulum, can be good. Some people dowse in other ways, divination. Is this person trying to manipulate me? Or they're manipulating you. You can ask questions, you can get answers. But that would be a situation where you should at least cut the cords every day. And, if you're having tangled interactions with the other party, several times a day. But I will later on give an exercise which is very powerful. And in the worst kind of situations that I've come across, the person the target of the manipulation might need to do that exercise 3 times a day, but after a couple of days they can cut it down usually. That would be the worst case scenarios that I've worked with. And it really only takes a minute or 2. But Archangel Michael is saying, I'm always here to help you, and I'm always available. Make use of the connection between us. The manipulator, if you can scan somebody's energies, one way you could find out if they're a manipulator, somewhat psychopathic, somewhat sociopathic, or very. When you look at the palms of their hands, you will either see if they are in that kind of an engagement with someone where they're trying totally to control the person, you would see like a cord growing out of their hand with a hook on the end of it, and it will be hooked somewhere onto the other person. And it's normally hooked onto where they live. So if it was, say, a man who was feeding off a woman to get the feminine energy that we all have to survive, someone who's not godly, who doesn't worship or love the mother of everything, the divine feminine, so they're not getting their female energy from the divine feminine, they don't love women, then they have to steal energy from women because otherwise they're going to die. So then the female chakra is the sacral chakra, 2 inches below the navel. So with such a man, you would normally find a cording with a hook going into the sacral chakra. With someone who totally wants to control another person, you will see it'll build up. If the person doesn't know it's going on and doesn't have techniques to clear the energies, doesn't have tools, you will see many cordings going around the person, just like they're tied up with rope. And I've seen a person who, they look like a fork full of spaghetti when you wind the spaghetti around the fork. When you get to the point where it's, there's so much spaghetti it's starting to fall off the fork. Like it looks like hundreds of cords all around them, like ropes binding them. And, needless to say, that person doesn't feel very good. If they don't know what's going on the energy level, they're going to be pretty unhappy because they, they'll be doing things they don't want to do. They'll be confused about what's going on. They'll be depressed. The other person is siphoning off their energy or blocking them from being in their power. And when I've seen that, I've seen the aura go a sort of nasty shade of brown. Because the person's energy is basically being drained, and it's a kind of, it's almost like a sewer in a way to look at. It's a situation, the energy is like, whoa. So it's a really good idea to understand how manipulators work, avoid them, clear the energies if you can't avoid them, call in Archangel Michael. And of course there's a violet flame exercise, because these people, when they're doing all this cording stuff, they will dump their nasty energy into your aura, the target's aura, and they're going to need some aura cleansing, which can be done with the violet flame exercise, which is a whole other exercise. It can be done with saging yourself every day, saging your aura with a sage stick, incense, keeping the energy in your home clean. This is called spiritual hygiene. And for the ordinary average person living an ordinary average life, they may rarely need to do these processes because it's less complicated. For the person on the spiritual path, and particularly for the healer, you're going to get a lot of energies thrown at you, coming at you. And even as a healer, I mean, some people have healing ability, and I've heard that they run the energy through their body to transform it. And, they're not going to be able to function for very long doing that. We're not meant to take on anything from other people. And we have guides and, high-level beings that can come through the healer and take all those dense energies to the light and diseasing energies and so on to the light. But, there are people who just know that they have some ability to run energy and they don't really know what they're doing. Don't take on stuff from other people. We're not meant to do that. And we have helpers. We have divine helpers who are always close by, always hear us, always answer our calls. And they have the job of transmuting the dense energies into light. And also, if you're healing, again, you need to know protection exercises for yourself. So, one part of it, I'll just say this briefly. One way, if you're doing hands-on spiritual healing, would be to imagine a light band before you get to your elbows to keep the energies out of your body. And after you've finished, do call in guides, do call in protection, do state that you don't take on anything that the other person is carrying, and wash your hands afterwards, after the session. Always wash your hands. I mean, even as a reader, I have to wash my hands. And it's funny, even when I've been talking to somebody on the phone, sometimes maybe I have a tendency, I'm very empathic. Some of their negative energy can come to me, even if they're a very positive person, or negative energy of someone we're talking about, and I can actually feel a kind of crackling in my hands until I go wash them to get the energy off. We take on energy all the time, and empaths take it on most of all and have to watch for that most of all. You can become so full of other people's pain that eventually it kills you. And that does happen to quite a lot of empaths. They bleed for other people so much that eventually they can't really live their life. Okay, now to the exercise. And I'm keeping this session as short as I can. I'll probably think of things after I hang up the phone and realize I need to do another one. But for now, these are just very basic things that I've learned. When there's any degree of seriousness in needing to separate your energy from another person, and I would say anytime they're on your mind, they're bothering you, and it doesn't matter if you love each other dearly, if your energies get tangled up, it does interfere with the relationship. What you do is you imagine yourself facing the other party. So you see two people, one is you, one is the other person. Bit of space in between you. I usually see us standing up. And each person has a bright, glowing ball of light in front of themselves. And it's connected by a cord to the solar plexus. And I tend to feel like a balloon, like the end of a balloon is going into your solar plexus, the blow-up part. And if you can just draw two people outlined and the ball in front of them and do some radiating lines coming out from the ball to show that it's a ball of light, that's probably all you need to remind you, to jog your memory. Then you look into the ball of light of the other person, and anything that belongs to everything, I missed out a bit. In your ball of light is all that you are. There's nothing inside your body. Same for the other person. Everything they are is in their ball of light. Nothing in their body. It's just a hollow outline, hollow shell. And looking into your own ball of light, start to take out anything that doesn't belong to you, that belongs to them, and send it into their ball of light. And keep on doing that until you feel that you're complete. You know, whether you're good at visualizing or not so good at visualizing, if you can't visualize very clearly, postulate that it's happening, it still works. Because belief is the creator of everything, really. So then you go to their ball of light, and everything that belongs to you that's in their ball of light, you send into your own ball of light, so that all they've got in theirs is everything that's them, and all you've got in yours is everything that's you. So when you're complete with that, you start to expand and brighten the balls of light. They get bigger and brighter, bigger and brighter. You might do a couple of arrows pointing outwards from them just to show that that's the next part of the process. They just expand and get brighter, expand and get brighter. When they've got kind of as big as they can get, they pop, those balls of light pop. And everything that belongs to you, everything in your ball, goes into you through your solar plexus. And the same with the other person. Everything in their ball goes into them through the solar plexus. And that's it. Whenever I've done that exercise, I've taken a deep breath afterwards, like a sigh of relief. You know, it's such a relief not to have somebody else's garbage in my field, or their issues, their anger, their whatever. And doing these kind of processes, while they sound rather simple, and they're really quite quick to do, in the long term for your health and happiness, it's going to make a huge difference. And actually for your health, it's very important. You know, for example, let's look at liver disease. The liver stores anger. And people who've been abused, when people abuse somebody, it could be an animal too, but abuse is dumping the anger of the other person into your liver. You know, eventually, if you don't know how to take care energetically, you'll get a liver disease. And I often find with people I work with that they had an angry parent who dumped anger into them. You know, so they're still carrying it in their liver, and eventually they will get problems if it's not healed, if it's not cleared and it's not healed. The bright side of that is that, you know, people choose their parents, and it's partly because of the stuff they will thereby work out. So they chose the situation, and since they chose the situation, it's usually curable, it's usually healable, it's usually possible to clear, heal, learn, and move on, which is, I guess, the area I'm dealing with. I don't encounter people who are not going to make it very often. I mean, obviously, I have. You know, we all have. But the people who are not going to make it, and some of them are very good people, the people who are not going to make it through, they very often have chosen a life to clear karma, and it may be for more beings than themselves. They may have chosen a very difficult life, but when they leave the body, there's not punishment. They don't punish themselves because they meant to have that life. It was a chosen life. It had a purpose, even though the people close to that person might have been driven crazy by them. And when they get a new life, they come in absolutely pure and lighted. And after such a life, a person normally goes on to a much happier path. So that's a few basics of cutting the cords and detaching from others. And you can do it with your loved ones as well as those you don't love. It comes up very strongly, obviously, when we're in conflict with somebody. It becomes very obvious that it's very much needed. But, you know, even in more tangled situations with loved ones, it can be very helpful to do one or other of those exercises, because it's like next time you connect, you come with a clean slate. And this allows spirit to come in and direct everything and then you get the best outcomes from your exchanges. You get the best possible outcome at that time. It's keeping the energies clear that allows that to happen. So thank you for listening. If you have any comments or questions, please write them in the space below my video. And if you would like a personal reading, it's a phone reading, and it can be recorded. You can email me, or you can connect with me on Facebook. Email might be better. Put reading or set up a reading in the header, or more information if you want to ask a few questions about how the process I do works. And it's been really good to connect with you. I hope you show up again. And if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe. Or if you would like to get more information as I bring out these videos, please subscribe. Then my videos will show up in your newsfeed. And as I say, if you can give me ideas also for subjects to address that are spiritual, that can be very helpful. I find at the moment I'm finding it really easy to, bring through information. And I do want to do some more videos on looking at the future of the world and the planet and various areas. There's a ton of areas, and I'm not quite sure. I feel like I'm still opening doors on this, actually, because obviously I don't have a problem talking, but you want to be talking about something that people are going to really get the benefit from and be able to use. That's helpful. So let me know if there's anything you want to know. And thanks again for listening. God bless.